So welcome everyone. Thanks for those that are on live and everyone who's going to be popping on, and also if you're watching the replay. Welcome to our kind of premiere of the AFM Book Club. And we are starting with Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Cialdini. This book I've read, and it was actually a book recommended by David Wood, and he's reading it now. I think he was sharing content about it. But I've read it, and someone mentioned they've read it too, and it's just amazing. Like every time I read it, I get a lot out of it. But I do have a lot of opinions about it, and so we're doing this kind of format where we read a chapter a week, and everyone will take kind of like an insight or something that stood out to them, and we're gonna have a discussion and kind of discuss what your thoughts are on it. So just kind of opening it up, we started with chapter 1. And chapter 1 is called Weapons of Influence. So just to kind of get us started, I think it's interesting, like Cialdini has a kind of like this, you can really sense his perspective on things. He's almost got this undertone of, I wouldn't say negativity, but he has this kind of his own opinion, like even the introduction, that he calls himself a patsy, that he gets, kind of duped into these compliance tactics, and he kind of developed this fascination for it because of it. But it's kind of like a little bit of a victim kind of, that's the kind of thing I get. And I think it's interesting that he uses the word weapon, that it's a weapon of influence, and that it's almost like these are things that are really not good that are being used against us. So just kind of opening up to that, I mean, that really stood out to me just from the chapter. But what do you guys think? Like, do you have the same kind of approach to that? How do you feel about it?
So, oh my gosh, let me make sure it's in this first chapter before I start talking about it, because there was a part in here no, I don't think it's the first chapter, actually. I think it was the second chapter where they're talking about Amway. Is that the second chapter? Is that the first chapter?
No, I haven't read it yet, so it must be the second chapter.
Okay, well then never mind. Go ahead and continue.
I think that's an interesting take on it, Kat, because I kind of missed that when I read it today. I read the intro and chapter 1 today, and I would have missed that if you hadn't said that. But now that you're saying it, I see that negativity. People have gotten me with this. I wanted to find out how come I was so stupid. I want to figure that out. That's an interesting take. I didn't read that before you said that.
Probably because I've read it, and then he has a very interesting conclusion. So kind of like you kind of see it throughout the book, but I guess I kind of pre-framed it now where maybe you'll really notice that opinion of his coming out. Don, what do you think? Like what stands out to you?
Well, I liked his analogy of the flies, that the female fly has the special trick that kills the male fly and she eats him. I guess that's like my ex-wife, but so here's the thing. What I found was, and I don't know, maybe Leslie has this as part of her career path and things that she's done too. When you're in negotiations with people, and I've had to negotiate $1 million+ print and binding deals, you always like start high because you know that it's going to come in low. And when he was talking about the two brothers at the tailor shop, and the one guy was deaf, and they were playing the game where the guy thought he was getting a real deal with the $22 suit when the guy said 42 and the other brother couldn't hear him. That's when you're kind of like taking advantage, but you don't know it. And in that aspect, it's kind of like it's up to the discerning consumer to know these things before they walk into the situation. So that's what I'm getting out of the first chapter so far, is that like Cy Sims used to say, an educated consumer is our best customer. To use the whole Taylor analogy, going through this.
Yeah, so it's because that's the thing that kind of, like what I was saying that stood out, that he kind of talks about consumers in this way that people are getting duped, right? That they're not educated about it, and that we have this click war kind of response to a lot of things. But personally, I don't know. I do see that we may respond in certain ways and not see it and not understand it. But at the same time, maybe because, I don't know, maybe because I've been a marketer now for a few years and I automatically see it as a customer and as a marketer. So maybe that has changed the way I look at it. But I feel like, I mean, I don't know, people to a degree, maybe nowadays, like we sell products online, right? And we are trying to sell things to people, but there's a lot of objections to overcome. And, you know, it's like people have more walls up, I guess. And I'm thinking of it from the perspective of our business and how we position things, like, you know, we position this trial right in front of people. But I'm thinking, like, you know, I've gotten different kinds of feedback. So like even in this contrast principle of like presenting a higher price, which is obviously what, like, let's say the total shortcut, that's what it does, right? Higher price, and then drops into a trial, like a $7 trial, then even into a $2 trial. Well, I've gotten feedback where people are like, why is this only $2 or $7? I'm not going to buy it because it's too cheap. I can't believe that it would actually have the value in it. And so when we position, for example, the same thing, but position it with a $25 trial, more buy it, right? So then there's that, like, expensive is good.
And that's like the woman at the jewelry store with the turquoise jewelry.
Yeah.
She tried to get it to be sold for half price, and somebody screwed up and sold it for double the price, and then it sold out. And the perceived value was higher because the people who were coming in were at a higher level income, and they said, wow, this costs a lot, so it must be good.
Yeah.
So
it's perceptual contrast. He talks about it actually in the book, perceptual contrast. So basically, really, like when you're selling, because I've been in sales most of my life. So when you're selling something, the reality is it's perception of the buyer. So if you start in with saying that, hey, this brings a lot of value, but it's only going to cost you $2, you start with that, but then you try and get them to go in their mindset to go to $5,000 when you just had them originally buy it for $2. The perceptual contrast is very different. However, if you start up at $5,000 and then you work them down to exactly what you said, Kat, if you go too low, like $2 or $7, I don't think that's always good, because the perceptual contrast is, hey, you can get it for $7, but really you should be buying it for $97. So to me, a $97 starting point is much better than a $7 starting point, because perceptually contrast. I'll give you a great example. You guys ever gone in and bought jeans, right? So you go in and buy jeans, okay? So when you walk in there, if it's a really good salesperson, the person will go, hey, you know what? They'll find out what type of jeans you kind of like. Then they'll take you to the most expensive ones, which is like $159. We'll just throw out a number, okay? So like $159, right? And then you go, oh, that's kind of expensive. They go, oh, okay. And they take you to the ones that are like $54. And you're like, wait a second. But why are you taking me? Because then ultimately, guess how much the jeans are that you end up buying? It's like $100 on the average. Because perceptually, you're like, wait a second, I can spend more than $54 on jeans, you know? But I don't want to spend $159. So you'll end up on the average, actually have people end up buying the $100 jeans, because it's called perceptual and psychological contrasting. That's what he talks about in there. So that's actually on it's one of my favorite concepts he talks about, page 14. And I use it in sales all the time. Like it's very successful.
If I can jump on that, hi guys, you guys are awesome. I've actually seen other people. What was his name? The guy that owns that travel network marketing company. He bought it, I don't know, a few years ago. Toby's done some work with him, and his name is just Hoverson. There you go, Hoverson. In some of his stuff, when he writes emails, if he's selling, so he'll actually write emails where he sells stuff in the email, and the only link in the email is to the form to buy. Okay, not very many people do that sort of thing. Usually, the email is to sell like a sales video or even a sales page, but he'll actually sell in the email. And when he does his selling in the email, he'll start out with really, really large numbers. And not necessarily like you see if you go to like a internet marketing event where it's just a pitch fest, they'll always say, $10,000, but I'm not even going to do it for $10,000, $5,000. It's worth way more than that. And here's all the reasons why. But today and today only, you can actually get it for less than $5,000. If you're thinking $1,000, check this out, $497, right? And then you just went through that huge chunk and you're like, oh shit, the perceived value is still up there because the anchoring principle, right? That contrast is there. Well, what he'll do is he'll actually talk about big numbers, but not even in terms of what he's selling. He'll just talk about really, really large numbers in terms of things that he's bought, the amount that he spent on the trip to get there, and even large numbers in like if he's selling something for $1,000 and talking about getting to the event where there were 10,000 people in it. And so just the fact that he's putting numbers out there, that there alone means a lot to create that same kind of contrast, right? I thought that was kind of interesting.
So what's your... Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, and that's actually like what you're saying, Brian. That's really like whenever you teach people how to sell, you always are selling to people. Like, and you do exactly what that email does, which you sell in the email, and you see it's called social. It's also social proof too. Hey, I spent this much money, I got this out of it. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, if I only invest like $1,000, I'm going to get like this much out of it or something. So it's really about value to the person too, perception of the value. So.
Yeah. I just like the fact that he talks about even talking about numbers that aren't necessarily having anything to do with price, but just using numbers that are larger than the price, significantly 10 times larger than the price, and using those numbers so that when it comes time to them think, well, how much is this worth? There's already numbers in their head. And that is just completely under the radar. Nobody thinks about that kind of thing. But with the anchoring principle, like if I said, how many different countries are there in Africa? And if you had no idea, and we were just talking about the fact that, I don't know, there's 13 chapters in this book. How many countries do you think there are in Africa? You'd probably, I don't know, if anybody wants to take a random guess that doesn't know, what's your guess?
13, because you mentioned 13 chapters in the book.
Well, if you felt like there were more than 13, I don't know, do you feel like there's more or less than 13, Leslie? Or 13
more.
exactly. More? Like how much more?
I don't know. I'd say 18.
18. Okay, so even if everybody feels there's more than 13, right? Well, if I would have first started talking about 23, you guys probably would still think maybe there's a little bit more because there's like 59, I think, or 57, something like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but because we had that anchored number in there before, you weren't able to get very far from it. It's that same kind of principle. And so if you're anchoring in a really, really large number is what it's worth, and then you're like, well, even if you can come down from that a little bit, you're like, oh, well, 10,000, let's bring it down a little bit to 4,000. But you're selling it for 400. That's kind of that contrast and that anchoring principle. Kind of, I don't know, two things kind of together. But I thought those work nicely together. But what were you going to say, Kat?
So I kind of forgot. But I was going to ask you. I was actually hoping Joe would come on. Because in terms of like selling Empower, right? So we have different packages. We have different kind of price points that we start at with trials, with packages, things like that. And from what I know, Joe sells really successfully at really much higher price points. And it's just the positioning of it, right? And it's the whole like expensive is good kind of thing. And even like breaking down our own funnel, right? When, we may have Total Shortcut right at the front of the funnel with just, I guess, much colder traffic, but then through our email list, we're going to offer at a higher price. But we offer a webinar series, we offer, more value. So I'm just thinking of it like how we can relate it and kind of even what your opinion is, Brian. Like, how do you position? Would you position at $7? And I know it depends on the person. I know it depends on the audience, but I don't know, because I don't know if you heard it, but the feedback was like, we've gotten feedback where people wouldn't join because $7 they thought was too cheap, and they couldn't understand how they could buy a business system for $7. So they backed off.
Yeah. Well, the answer is they can't. It's a trial, and they're only getting it for a very small amount of time, and then they have to start paying the real price. But the real price is $5,200, and I'm up front with that as quick as possible. Because for one, that kind of solids it. It puts it in their mind as, okay, it's not a $7 thing. It's a $5,200 thing. And that's how Joe sells it as well, although he doesn't mention the price very quickly when I've heard him sell. It's more of he's selling based on his authority and his value and also the team and also the company and what we've done, but more importantly, what we're going to do that I've seen. And then also relating it back to that person and really figuring out what they want. But I'd say moreover, he just assumes everybody wants to be a millionaire. And if we're talking millions, then what's the difference between a couple of thousand? It's not a big deal if we're making millions. And when that conversation is that high up, then I guess the little bits don't really make a huge difference.
I think
like when he was talking about that contrast thing, when you're already spending thousands or hundreds for a suit, spending way more than you normally should on a sweater, it just goes, you don't even think about it. It's not a big deal. Sorry to interrupt.
I was just going to say, I came in on Project Titan, and to me, I came in at 1094. What? You okay? I came in at 1094. You know what I mean? Think at that, and I brought in, for me, anything of value is, it's going to cost me more. That's how I think of things in life in general. A lot of times, So whenever I'm presenting anything here, it's like, hey, people go, well, how much is it going to cost? I'm like, well, how important is it to actually make money? How important is that what you want to get out there into the world? What kind of price can you put on that? And they'll be like, oh, that makes sense. What else am I going to get with it? And then I'll just sell the value of it. But really, it's more that that it's like you got to believe. Like, I don't really try and ever sell cheaper stuff. I always like to sell the expensive stuff because it's my time too out there selling. So that's how I think of it. So. Because I'll be honest, I really struggle right now a little bit. I haven't done as well ever since we started doing the $7 thing and doing all that. Like, I just want you to give me one price tag and I'll go sell it.
So here's the place for the $7 thing, and that is not in a conversation. It's in a sales funnel,
right?
With a bunch of people, because it's harder. Even if what we're saying is true, where price equals value, and a higher price means more value. It's harder to get somebody to spend $10.94 with a complete stranger that they've never had a conversation with. Now you can do it. People do it all the time. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying it's harder. You're going to get more sales. So what the $7 trial is not so much like getting the sale as it is filtering the leads. And a $7 trial member is just a more qualified lead.
Yeah.
So you can count it a sale, I guess, but I wouldn't really count it so much to a more qualified lead. But you're getting their credit card information. You're having them create an account. You're getting the process started. They're already feeling committed to it, that sort of thing. And so to do that in a conversation, what you can do is really not even talk about price at all. And if you wanted to just walk them through, here's where we're going to get started. I'm going to send you a link and just sign up for the trial just because it's easy and there's zero risk there. And then I'm going to have you go through the 4-step fast start process. Step number 4 is to get back in contact with me. So that would be kind of more how, if I'm actually doing it through a conversation, I'm not really selling the $7, but I'm going to go ahead and tell them to spend $7, and nobody really has an objection with that. That makes sense.
I just think it's all a different approach. Like you said, like obviously I'm learning the sales funnel, so I'm a little less apt to I'm more still utilizing what I know, which is sales. I know how to sell. I know how to build relationships. So I'm gonna still utilize my skill set I have right now and then make some money up front as I'm learning the whole process of this sales funnel and this, that way I don't get frustrated not bringing anything in and be like, oh, I'm not making any money whatsoever, right? And I'm spending all my time learning, which I need to do, but 80% of it needs to be, like we talked about yesterday, Brian, productive and out there,
It's a smart strategy, Julianne.
So I don't know. I'll let you know.
Absolutely makes sense. I mean, and that's something in my coaching sessions I say too. Figure out what do you bring to the table? What are you already great at? What are you already good at? And then from there, let's build on that. And sales background, a bunch of connections. I mean, it'd be stupid to ignore all that, you know, just because that's not the main way that we do it.
Well, I think that's the thing. It's like you got to figure out what works for you in the beginning, because I obviously see the big picture of this whole sales funnel and everything that, you know, you guys do. I love that, but that's going to take me a while to learn, you know, and I can't sit around on my hands and not make any money while I'm learning it. So instead I got to figure out what works for me today to make a little money, you know, and I think that's something I try and teach other people too, who are on my team, because some of them are getting frustrated. And I'm like, you guys, look, time out. When you first joined, you joined for a reason. Take what you know already and just develop how to sell around that. And then from there, we'll learn all this other stuff together, you know? So.
Awesome.
Sorry guys, my internet is in and out. So I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, like what you guys are touching on. One thing I'll say, Julianne, is that from what I've learned, like in terms of processes and sales, like I really think that, because I worked in retail for a long time too, and as a trainer, and so I've always been kind of involved with sales, even though I told myself I didn't like it. But now I love it, and I understand more what it is. But really, this whole process of selling online is the same thing. It's just developing relationships, and you can do that in the beginning, just one-on-one, right? Sending messages, just reaching out to people. And then as you're doing that, you are already building your audience and building that rapport and relationships. You already have the opportunity to sell, which is what you're good at. And then while you're doing that, you're developing processes to automate that over time, so that you can compound it and you can build the scalability in it and still take the same principles and apply them in that way too, because it still applies. So I don't know, I would think that even just doing like Facebook Hustle or the 531 on Instagram would be exactly what that is, because you're just, because it's like, you know, we get caught up in numbers and stuff and leads and all that, but they're people. And there was a time actually, like, I mean, we're actually here because we're shooting like a webinar series. We're at this really nice place. And it's actually, we used to live right beside here for like a year. The one thing I'm obsessed with automation and scalability, right? But doing it in a way where we can still have that effect of building rapport and this idea of kind of like over delivery of value, and still using this principle of expensive is good. And so we offer things at higher price points, like even through the funnel process, you know, offering, let's say, Klaatu Cloud at $47, and then on top of that offering a $2 trial for the blog. So it's kind of like you give them the cloud, right? Something that they need to use in their business to build an email list, and then throw in a $2 trial. Who wouldn't buy it? It's like, I mean, it's like when we're at the checkout, right? And you have you go into the grocery store for one item, and then you're at the checkout and there's like all these little items that you just add into your basket. And then all of a sudden you're spending like triple the amount that you intended to buy. And it's like the little add-ons, right? Like how he's talking about the suit and the sweater after and the belts and all that stuff. So we're going to try this positioning of, you know, really doing kind of a presentation about, let's say, Klaatu Cloud, offering it as $47, also talking about the benefits of blogging and saying, look, you guys can also get this $2 trial with the $47 Klaatu Cloud. And so it's like using this principle of, I mean, if you're already going to buy $47, why wouldn't you buy the $2? They'd be crazy not to. But I want to hear Heather and Valdez, Tracy, if you guys have any input or want to chime in with anything that, you know, feedback or on what we're discussing.
I think it's great because it's now making a lot more sense to how this can apply to this business as well as any other business. You know, I think reading this part, and when you said weapons of influence, it tickled me because some of the things that he is talking about, you don't realize that is a weapon of influence, because we don't realize, at least maybe I didn't realize, like, I use this stuff, like, it's on page 4. It says a well-known principle of human behavior says that when we ask someone to do us a favor, they'll be more successful if we provide a reason. You know, like, can you do this for me because I have a party? Can you watch my kids? Like, not can you watch my kids? I'll be back in a little while. Like, they're more likely to watch my kids because I'm going, I'm asking them because I have a reason, not just because I want to go to Starbucks and have alone time or something,
Wait, what I gathered from that, Heather, was that the reason was important. The shortcut was that the word because was there.
Exactly.
And so, like, even if it was just you had to go, or even if you didn't give a reason, hey, can you watch my kids because I need somebody to watch my kids? The fact that it works better is because we've given a reason. Now, the validity of the reason, what the reason is, didn't seem important. Now, I've done some more reading on that, and that is only true for simple requests, right? If it was, can you watch my kids for the next 3 months? I'm going to go to Australia for a bit. Because I want to, that's not going to work, right? It has to be, it needs to be a simple request. So for the example given was cutting in line for the copier, it's not a huge deal. And so when they just said, hey, I've got 5 pages, can I cut in line? It was 60-something%. When it was, hey, I've got 5 pages, can I cut in line because I only have 5 pages? That was 94%. And when it was, can I cut in line because I'm in a hurry or something like that, that was also 94. So whether the reason gave more information of, and if you actually thought about the reason, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. All right, go ahead. People weren't really thinking about it. It was, you either have like a quick decision immediately, or like if I said, hey guys, think of a country that starts with the letter D. Okay, just think of a country real quick that starts with the letter D, and an animal that starts with the letter K, and a color that starts with an O. All right, cool. Well, there's not that many orange kangaroos in Denmark, right? And I don't know how many of those I hit on, but that quick decision-making process, when you don't actually have to think about it, I can see some of you guys that I probably got all 3 of them. Some of you guys might have thought of like a koala or something, or Dominican Republic or whatever, but most people would think an orange koala in Denmark. And so you either have that snap decision where you don't have to think about it, and for those things, just having the word because there and some words after it, boom, immediately you go from 60-something to 90-something%. For anything a little bit more than that, then they actually have, but that's what I gathered. And so,
hey Brian,
I didn't mean to interrupt there. Yeah,
one
go ahead.
thing I thought about when I read that part about the surveys with the people cutting in line, none of these 3 was done in New York. Not one of them.
Now, definitely everything is cultural, so there may be some validity to that.
That's really true, Don, really true.
So then I was thinking that how this would apply. I mean, how do y'all think this would apply to selling the packages? Like when I sell something in my business, I do tell them I start at the highest price point. I have a sheet that starts at the highest price point. And I do say, this one might be better because, this is the reason behind that or whatever, So, I mean, like, how does that apply to, I guess, empower is, I guess, where I'm going now with that.
It's always going to be better to use the word because, and it's always going to be better to assign a meaning to anything. Like David Wood takes it a step further and says, not even just the word because, but giving a reason and a meaning for everything. Hey guys, I want you to really pay attention tonight because it's going to something, right? Just using that bit of language, using the word because for every request that you have would be good. But when it comes down to anything that's going to be a bit more something where they actually got to think about it, it can't hurt, to use the word because. So if you could just start slipping that into more of your language regularly because it works better, then that could help.
Because if you bring some value to people, really seriously, because people just want to know what the value is to them, how it's going to benefit them as individuals, as people.
Yeah.
Okay, you want my time, and if I say, well, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, she actually cares. She cares that my time is valuable to me. She cares that this is going to bring value to my life. Everybody wants to know what value it's going to bring to them. Is he getting his? Oh, Daz, are you getting your hair cut or what?
Yeah.
And also makes me think of, when we were going through like the Titan launch, and we had the little mini video, right, that you would send through chat, and there was people getting success just sending the video and saying, can you just watch this because I want to see if the video is working, right? Piquing interest that way, a simple request, right?
Very minor request, right? Watch a 30-second video, 90-second video, something like that, yeah. Very simple request.
So awesome, guys. Welcome also, Patricia. Thanks for joining. We're kind of ending it out, though. We're going to be ending it out now. If you guys have any closing kind of remarks on the chapter or anything you want to add.
I thought the last sentence, the last page, that last letter to her parents, oh my gosh, that I laughed so hard at that. I was in tears. I was like, oh my gosh, so smart. Like, that just made so much sense to me. And I loved it. I mean, because I would totally be like, well, I'm glad you're failing, you know? I just thought that was the best part of the whole chapter, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a nice way to wrap it up for sure. I really enjoyed all the humorous ways that we could look at the animals with their little ones, like the turkey literally attacking one of its enemies, and then it starts making that noise of the animal, of the baby turkey, and it starts being motherly towards it, and then they stop playing the noise and it starts attacking it again. And seeing that, okay, that's a pretty extreme example. We don't have triggers like that as humans, because we do have those we do have triggers like that, like the word because on simple request. But then on top of that, we also have another layer, like above that lizard brain or whatever, where we can be a little bit more critical, and we weigh the pros and cons and stuff. In which case, these things aren't really going to be as immediate, but still helpful. Right. And so this isn't about mind controlling someone into doing something. Obviously, they have to want to. But if we can position it in a way to where, psychology is right behind it and science is right there behind it, it's going to work better, and we can make more. Right. I thought, I enjoyed it. I wanted to keep reading, but I refrained and had to read something else. So I'm excited to get started on chapter 2.
One thing I will add, though, Brian, because he's doing these examples of animals, right? And it's kind of like, we can all laugh at these animals, but then he's kind of making a point that we kind of do respond that way, right? We may look at it as silly animals, right? But we do have certain triggers and responses, which he'll also talk more about later on in the chapters, right? So I guess he's kind of making that point, because he starts off, I'm a patsy with getting influenced by all these people and wanting to figure out why. So I think it's interesting. So if you guys are cool, we'll end it out here. The next chapter is Reciprocation. So I think it's a longer one.
So my favorite ones.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really quite a lot of notes.
Reciprocity is like one of the biggest psychological selling principles out there. So
it might even be a longer hangout. Stories and stuff. It's really good.
Pat, where are you guys posting the book club or whatever?
It's in the 8FM group. I'm going to make an event for next week. I didn't make an event this week. But the Zoom I posted in the 8FM chat and also in the 8FM group. And I'll be posting
like a book club chat.
Did you put it in the chat too?
Yeah, I put it in the 8FM remix chat.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think we'll probably have different people popping on different weeks. Like, I expect that it's going to be. So I don't really want to start anything kind of separate. Everyone will be able to access it through 8FM. And I'll be posting the replay of this within the next couple of days. Just got to get some better internet. So thanks, guys. And thank you so much, Heather, for taking notes. As soon as I get that, I'll share that with you guys. And in terms of assignment, so yes, we have chapter 2 next week. But I urge you guys to, even right now, or if you want to wait on the notes, but to compile a video, right? Shoot a video, and or if you want to actually write a blog post, if you enjoy writing more, write a blog about, what we talked about. And if you want to, however you want to position it, if you want to position it in terms of what we do, right, as entrepreneurs online, ask your audience questions, what their opinions are on it. It's a fantastic way to engage with people and also to rank for content, because you could shoot a video on YouTube and rank for influence. Book review. So thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Fantastic chat. Lots to think about. I'm going to be like, how can I apply this to my business? And see you guys next week. Bye.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
Bye, guys.